Is your code readable? I bet sometimes you see an old code in a project and you think, who wrote this? And then when you look at the commits, you see that the writer is you. You wrote this code a year or maybe 2 ago. To be honest, it's less important who wrote this code. The main question, if there is a way to improve it. Can we even write a readable code? But first of all, I want to emphasize that right now I'm talking only about code readability and not code maintainability. Please don't mix these two things. Maintainability is a bit more objective of a measurement, meaning how much effort you need to add a new feature. Currently, I'm working on a new project where I do not know how the entirety of the project works at all. I mean, I understand what this module does, what we want to achieve. I've added a couple of functions, put some performance fixes, but I still haven't figured out why we do this and that in the code, or how the things work together in general, because it's very difficult to gain an actual context for real understanding. So to me, what a kind of I see this. The code I'm working on is very maintainable, but I cannot read it. There are the functions that contain around 200 lines of code. A function like this does its job. The code is fully maintainable, but it takes time to understand what is going on there. Can this be improved? That's the question. Sure, it can, and I'll get back to this later in this video, so please bear with me. First of all, I want you to understand that reading a code is not easy at all, especially as your types get more advanced and you need to go through the several layers of abstractions. And it's all just to understand what's the thing that you are looking right now. By the way, not all code is just easy readable. For example, look at Scala Play framework. Did you know this is the most hated framework around the developers according to Stack Overflow survey 2023? Anyway, you can easily use the framework, but it's really hard to understand what it does on the low level. So as I see it, there are two questions. Is the code really readable? Is a programmer skillful enough to be able to read a code that he has never seen before? I'm trying to say the problem with readability that usually people look at it at a very one-sided way. They always assume that it's a responsibility only of the code to be readable and never the responsibility of a programmer to be experienced enough to be able to read it. And this is a very controversial topic because it assumes that people need to get better at something, and nobody likes to be told that he's not good enough. So on the one side, with gaining more experience, you'll probably be able to solve the problems in a less complex way. You'll write well-structured and neat code, and you will feel that your code is pretty readable. But on another side, when you say that the code is not readable, open any project on GitHub that you've never looked at. Trust me, at the first glance, the code is going to look bad. It doesn't look like the way you like to write code. It looks like somebody else's weird code. And perhaps that code does its job in a way that you don't like. And that's just how the life works. Now you can get used to it and try to become better at committing to someone else's code style. For example, if you are deep into functional programming, you look at the code that follows more object-oriented style, and you think that the code is not readable and could be improved. By the way, it works the opposite way too. Once I was reviewing a pull request and I wanted to suggest a more object-oriented approach, but then I had to stop myself, just like, is it really necessary here? Or is it just what I used to do? Readability just might be a preference, and people sometimes make things out to be absolute. There is this one-dimensional measurement of readability, and we see now that the readability is not only on the code itself, it's on the person, it's on their experience, it's just partially in the code and even partially on the language itself. So in order to make the code readable, you need to fix both sides of readability problem. On the one side, when you contribute, you can try your best to make the code as readable as possible. For example, I tried to break bigger functions and classes to smaller code chunks if possible, where every class name, every function's name explains explicitly what this object class function is supposed to be doing. Also, you can write a more readable code by trading optimization and performance. It's also a kind of a controversial thing to do, but still it's possible. When I write a code, I always try to think what is more important in my case. And if performance is not a king, I think it's not so bad idea to make a step back in the code to make it a kind of suboptimal, not with the highest performance possible, but slightly more readable, more clear, more concise. But all these rules above work better for easier problems, to be honest. And it's not always possible to follow these rules while writing something more complex, more complicated. So talking about another side of this problem, you need to be a person that is willing to do actually the hard things. You need to be able to push into difficulty, to transform your reading skills into understanding how the code base is written and then try to contribute to it. Also, don't treat every code you write as a piece of art. Accept the fact that coding is largely uncomfortable, that it's not going to be the way you want the things to be. The readability is going to be an exercise of patience, and just simply release that. I'm not defending a poorly reading code, of course not. The reality is that at some point, every single code base had to make the trade-offs for delivering. There's never a perfect solution. There are always trade-offs because even the solutions that are good, requirements change and that solutions no longer fit well. And we need to learn how to balance in between. If you agree with me, please hit the like button below. If you don't, please write the comment why. I would really love to know your opinion on this one. By the way, I answer every comment. So see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.